At the very outset, it's my privilege to invite our Honorable Principal Sir, Professor Budhin Mishra, for inaugural address. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. I want to thank the faculty of Home Science Department of our college for organizing this webinar. For about long 6 months, we are not able to continue the regular classes due to COVID-19 pandemic. Under the circumstances, this sort of webinar is of great use for us, particularly to the students community. I convey my sincere regards to Dr. Jonali Borua for joining us by sparing her valuable times from far away from USA. I believe this webinar will be a great success one. LISPA is also helping us by their valuable help in organizing various webinars. I believe, like the other webinar organized by various departments of our college, this will also be a success one. With these few words, I declare the webinar open for discussion. Thank you.
Of today's webinar with valuable words. Thank you once again, sir. Now, I would like to request our head of the department, Dr. Rita Borkotoki, to deliver the welcome speech. Over to you, ma'am.
Who is joining, who has joined from Texas, USA, and respected principal Shikshago Girls College, Professor Budhin Mishra sir, respected resource person, and esteemed participants. The outbreak of COVID-19 has been one of the most difficult times of our lives. I'm sure all of you will agree with me. It is affecting our life directly and as well as indirectly. Directly, it is affecting our health, both physical and mental, and indirectly, as we know, it is affecting many areas of our life, that is economy, social life, cultural life, religious, and many more. The worst affected area of our life is academics. All the schools and colleges in India are closed since mid-March 2020, when the first lockdown was started. Our children have been adversely affected by this unprecedented situation. To overcome this situation, online learning or digital learning methods were used, and face-to-face learning mode was replaced by that. The most of the education institutions earlier, we used to restrict the use of mobile phones. But ironically, now we can see that we are encouraging our students to use mobiles for their teaching, learning. And thus we are increasing their screen time. Why only students? The screen time of our teachers also has increased. This may have some effect on us. In India, earlier also we had used digital learning method in a very small way. But the current circumstances have forced us to adopt the digital mode as the only mode of education. COVID-19 was entirely unexpected phenomenon. Therefore, any measure to revert to normalcy, or rather to say revert to some semblance of normalcy, had to be organized on an ad hoc basis. These methods or measures needs verification and evaluation. Therefore, we felt the need of organizing a webinar on impact of virtual learning on higher education, so that we can provide a platform for discussion. And we are thankful to Professor Jonali Borua. She agreed to speak upon teaching and learning in virtual environment and its impact on higher education. My junior colleagues, Dr. Rajashree Fukan, Mr. Obijit Borpujari, along with Sikhamoni Borgohai and Monikankana Mohanta, Rajashree Fukan and Obhijit Borpujari are the coordinators of this webinar. They left no stone unturned to make the idea making the idea actualization. If the participants are benefited in even the smallest way, we will consider their endeavor as a successful one. With this, I would like to wrap up, and I welcome you all to an hour and a half of very necessary, timely discussion. Thank you. Thank you all. Over to Rajashree.
And co-host as well to speak few words specially to the participants. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajashree Fukan. A very good evening to all, and a very good morning to our person. Honorable Principal Sir of the Sargo Girls College, Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Junali Borua Madam, Advisor of this webinar and Head of the Department of Home Science, Dr. Rita Borkotoki Ma'am, Coordinator, Dr. Rajashree Fukan, General Secretary of LISPA, faculty members and participants. First of all, on behalf of LISPA, I welcome all of you in this special webinar organized by Department of Home Science, Sargo Girls College. As we are playing the collaborator role in this webinar, I want to say a few words about LISPA, the Librarian Information Science Professionals Association. It is a multidimensional organization. Since 2013, it has been working for the upliftment of library professionals, not only for library professionals, but it is also involved in social development, social welfare related works. It also provides a helping hand towards the academic activities of various institutions. It has now become a popular organization among the library professionals, not only in Assam, but also in the entire northeastern region. It provides training programs among them, and it has some regular publications and academic and social activities. Before the deliberation of resource person, I want to share some guidelines for the participants. Kindly mute yourself at the time of the webinar in progress. Share your questions through the chat box only. Please don't message for feedback. We will provide the feedback form at the last part of the webinar. Certificate will be sent through mail after collecting the report from Cisco WebEx only. So without consuming more time, I want to switch over our coordinator, Dr. Rajashree Fukan. Over to Fukan.
Respected participants, our resource person has already joined with us. So before delivering her presentation, I would proud privilege to introduce her with few words. Dr. Junali Borua is an associate professor in the Department of Psychological Sciences at Tarleton State University, Texas, USA. Her research examines the cognitive process groups. She is also interested in examining the effects of diversity in team innovation. Dr. Borua has published papers in various international journals and presented workshops across the world on group creativity and innovation. After community science, Assam Agriculture University, Durhat, Dr. Borua completed her first master's with a specialization in human development from SNDT University, Mumbai, and a second master's and a PhD in experimental psychology from the University of Texas at Arlington. Prior to her current job, she worked as a research associate at the UT Southwestern Medical Center, Dallas, and as a visiting assistant professor of psychology at Southern Methodist University, Dallas. Dear participants, it's going to be a very informative presentation, as the itinerary is very exciting and useful as well. So I sincerely hope that everyone will enjoy the session. With this, I hand it over to the resource person. Over to you, ma'am, and a warm welcome you once again.
Thank you, Rajashri. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Thank you, Dr. Borkotoki. Thank you, Mr. Borpujari, for having me here today. I am going to share my screen in a minute. Okay, so the current topic is teaching and learning in virtual environment and its subsequent impact in higher education. So if you look at the current scenario, this is the current scenario where everybody is interacting electronically. And as you can see, one of the most common interaction today is this one, where everybody is interacting through either Zoom or WebEx or maybe Google Meet. This has become a part of our daily life, not only for those who are working, also for people in our daily life where we want to meet our friends, talk to our friends, our family. This is the situation here, a virtual group. Why did that happen? Well, there are many reasons. First of all, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. 1.38 billion children in 186 countries are affected by school closures due to COVID. And there is a growth and adoption in educational technology. And there is a high need to online teaching, training, and intervention. If you look at the scenario in the US, if you're going back in history, back in 1864, there was this introduction of distance learning, whereas in India, you can go back to 1962, where distant learning was introduced in Delhi University. Until 2006, in the US, American colleges and universities were not permitted to offer more than 50% of their course online. However, in India, 20% of the degree was offered online, and it was not allowed, universities were not allowed or permitted to offer more than 20% of the degree online. But now, what happened? Well, 6.9 million students enrolled in distance education courses at post-secondary institutions. If you look at this is the scenario in the US, 85% of online students felt that distance learning experience was same or better compared to classroom experiences. And today, here we are in a virtual learning and teaching environment. And this is a framework in which we can all meet and work together and build a community virtually. And how virtual environment can help. In rural India, schools are understaffed. We do not have enough teachers in the schools or even colleges. And we do not have enough resources. The distance from home to school is no more a problem because of the virtual environment. The current infrastructure cannot accommodate the growing college-aged population and enrollment because the enrollment is increasing. We need more colleges. The population is increasing. Students look for colleges that meet their schedules and circumstances. If you look at the characteristics of students in the current generation, students are not only just students in colleges. They also want to take other courses like certification courses. Students are also interested in doing part-time jobs. If you look at the scenario in US, most of the students, they are engaged in some sort of jobs, either part-time or full-time. And at the same time, they are pursuing their degree. And in that kind of a scenario, obviously you need an environment where to some extent, you need online kind of teaching and learning environment. Then you can give time to your education as well as the work. The percentage of adult male, female, and minority learner is increasing. Well, back in the days, there was a limited section of population who had the privilege to pursue education. Over a period of time, now it is open to all, and to some extent, it is made possible because of the online option. In our university, what we have noticed is that the retention rate is higher, especially when we incorporate the online options. For our graduate master's program, what we have noticed is initially when we had our master's program, which was completely face-to-face, the retention was, the enrollment was not increasing satisfactorily. And then we started incorporating new courses which had online options where participants could join at any time. And as a result of that, suddenly we saw a significant increase in the enrollment in our program, and also the retention rate was higher because there was a flexibility for the students to join in the program. And this is a win-win situation for both the students as well as the university. The university can enroll more and more students, and on the other hand, the students also, it is convenient for the students to join those programs from wherever and whenever they can. If it is asynchronous, obviously they can join at any time, and if it is synchronous, they join at certain specific time. There are a lot of other positive aspects. I will also talk about some risks that we take in this kind of virtual environment in a minute. Instruction is becoming more and more learner-centered these days, because if we do not have learners in our university, we'll have to close our university. Well, we will need this. We will need students. And when we need students, we have to meet their requirements. For that, we need to be flexible. And the government of India now has introduced this new policy, educational policy, and there are some great ideas that I have seen they have incorporated. And one thing is, skill-based training, and which has been the model in the United States for many years, and that if that can be implemented well, this is going to be a very effective educational system. Because today, as I said, the students, they are more concerned about what am I going to do after taking this degree? Am I going to get the job? And what is going to give me the job? Okay, I'm taking this particular course. Is it going to give me the job? So these are some of the things that they really need to know. And that's why vocational training is another requirement. In terms of benefits of remote learning, well, convenience is one. Learn from anywhere at any time. There is enhanced learning. Learn at your own pace. Savings, you save money and time. There is an easy access to global resources. And then especially for higher education, 37% felt that distance learning is better than face-to-face instruction, especially in higher education. 48% felt that distance learning is same as face-to-face instruction. However, only 15% of students did not feel their online courses were as effective. 85% of online US students felt that their distance learning experience was the same or better compared to the classroom courses. So obviously there is a high demand in distance learning, and it definitely serves some purpose for the students. students with special needs. There are many students who have special needs. Some of them, they cannot commute to their colleges on a daily basis. They will need a support from someone, especially students such as autism, dyslexia, speech difficulties, student having social anxiety. There are different types of student population that we have in our colleges. How to incorporate the requirements of different types of student population, that is very important requirement currently in the universities, because we want to be all inclusive, because education is for all. And if we want to make it flexible, if we can make it flexible, then it caters to the need of a variety of population. And remote learning to a large extent can help in that in that case. When the learning is asynchronous, so asynchronous means it is learning environment where the students can log in at any time. They can submit their assignment. They can post their discussion, their comments at any point of time, and the faculty can join at another time, at any point of time. So they don't. Everybody does not have to join at the same time. So that is that is the kind of flexibility that many students want. And also, remote learning allows innovative teaching. We can include multimedia. We can include a lot of audiovisual resources. When we are in class teaching face to face, there will be the faculty, which is who is in front of you, and then there will be a group of students. Of course, nowadays we can also use multimedia, when with our projector, and we have internet, we have computer in the classroom. However, given the current situation, such as Corona, and there is another situation here. Suppose there are students who cannot join in person, they prefer to join online, then what would you do? Definitely, kind of remote learning is definitely very, very helpful. We don't lose anything. Only thing is we lose is we don't get to see the instructor really in person, face to face, but we get to see the instructor online. And also it maximizes the physical resources. It also maximizes the verbal plus visual information. We can switch between our instruction as well as the multimedia that we want to present. And psychological research has shown that the verbal information is in fact better. It is better remembered. It is better retained when we combine it with audiovisual aids. Listening and viewing has a great learning impact on the students. Of course, there are some additional things such as enriched learning environment, e-textbook. I have always suggested e-textbook to my students because we have noticed that e-textbooks are slightly less expensive than the real hardcover textbooks. And from my experience, I have noticed that my students always go for e-textbook. They just download the textbook on their computer and they can read it, and they save like 50% of the cost that way. And then, of course, there are other things such as, readily available practice exercises. The test can be timed, just like we do in the classroom, in the face-to-face classroom, where there is a specific time set for some of the exams. Say they have to complete the exam in 1 hour. We can do the same thing online. All we need to do is we set the time, and the students have to finish it within that time period. And there are other options as well. There are options such as when their test window is open, they cannot they cannot open other windows, because there is a chance that there will be some degree of plagiarism. That is another concern that university faculty members have. Like, okay, they're doing it online, there is no one, so maybe they're going to go check everything in Google and then they're copy it. Well, there are choices where there are, the tests that we give to our students. When they open the test, they cannot open any other windows. They cannot open any other browser. That is the only thing that they have on their computer. Since it is timed, they have no time to go open the book and find the answer. they definitely have to finish it within that given time period. So it is quite effective. It has worked well for us. And also there is another option called online proctoring. In online proctoring, there is an option where when the student is taking the test, there is another person who's actually there online. That person is officially assigned this job where the person kind of monitors online if the student kind of is going and browsing some other browsers. The proctor can actually catch all those moves. So online proctoring is available, and we often use online proctoring in our tests, and this has really helped. The faculty does not really need to worry about it. The moment we have the online proctoring, the proctor is going to check how the student completed the whole test. And then there are other things such as obviously group discussions, message boards. All these stimulations enrich our learning, and these things were never available when we were having our face-to-face mode of learning. We attend the lecture and then we go home, and after that we are done until we come back in the next class. However, when it is a remote learning, you are constantly in touch. There will be group, there are discussion boards. If you have a question, you can post that question on the discussion board, and you have the choice to be and I will talk about anonymity in a little bit, but these are some of the positive aspects. There is immediate access to instructors. There's a quick and frequent feedback. A lot of studies have found that in online mode of learning, the feedback is much quicker from the faculty members. And also there is a peer-to-peer teaching and learning where the students help each other in terms of learning. If anybody has any questions or queries, they post their question on the discussion board or on the whiteboard, and instantly somebody else will respond to it. So it is much easier that way. However, are we ready with this kind of online setting? I'm talking about this from Indian perspective. What is the current scenario in educational setting in India? The educators primarily focus on enhancing creativity among gifted and talented. So what we have noticed is that the kind of assessment that we follow, we try to always reward the students who have high IQ. We seldom reward the students who have high creative ability. The focus on creative thinking is not much. Well, we have a very clear-cut curriculum, and the curriculum has set things that we need to set, milestones that we need to achieve. And if you look at those milestones, there are few that actually incorporate critical thinking, how to increase the creativity of the students, because these are some of the things which are very much required in real organization, in real world setting, in workplace. But in the in university system or even in school system, we just reward the students who are good, just IQ. And I'm sure most of you know that there is a difference. Just having a high IQ does not necessarily mean that you will have a high creative ability. Creative thinking is something that needs to be taught, and I'll be talking about it in a minute. So these are some of the things that we really need to focus. However, we do not focus on these creative thinking or critical thinking in our educational scenario. If you look at the challenges in the real world, there is a high need of critical thinking. There's a high need of creativity, teamwork. We never teach teamwork in our university or college level or even in school level. Yes, students are engaged in group activities, they are engaged in group project, but that they do it on their own. We have never, I don't think we have had any kind of courses where we have a course on team building, negotiation, team decision making, how to collaborate, how to increase the interpersonal skills, abilities. Well, I have heard that some of the universities, some of the schools, they focus on leadership abilities, how to build leadership abilities, but we rarely focus on these kind of areas. We do not talk about biases and stereotypes. These are some of the important things that are required. We all need to know all this when we want to go find a job, when you get into the job, and that transition becomes very difficult from your university setting to work setting. To some extent, it is fine when we are in, suppose we want to be a faculty in a university. Maybe some of the things are same, but think about organizations. Many students will go and join some company, some other, organizations, private or public. How are they prepared? Are they equipped? They do have knowledge. The theoretical knowledge is there. They learn it from the book. But what about the practical knowledge? What about the knowledge about critical thinking? So these are some of the things that are lacking. And I am super impressed by the new educational system that is being planned in Indian context, where now they will focus on skill-based training and creativity thinking, which is, I'm sure that is going to bring a significant change in the educational scenario. So there is a big gap between learning and application if you look at the current scenario. What's the need for the hour? Well, a pedagogical shift within distance education, moving from a transmission model to constructivist, sociocultural, and metacognitive model. These models use computer-mediated communication. It is easier to teach students using these kind of models. Now, if I get into the details of all these different kind of models, probably that is going to take me another hour. So I will stick to some of the key points, and instead of getting really deeper into some of these models. And the other one is enhancing the creativity. How do we enhance creativity of the students in computer-mediated communication? Now, the given scenario, we have to focus on computer mediated communication, not only because of COVID. There are other reasons why we need to focus on this kind of virtual environment. As you all know, the organizations are becoming more and more geographically diverse and dispersed. As a result of outsourcing, the organizations are decentralized. If the call center is in India, the manufacturing center is in China, and maybe the administrative center is in Philippines. So everything is spread all over the world. However, they are regularly making decisions. They are brainstorming for new ideas. They are coming up with new ways to implement their ideas. How are they doing it? They are doing it through computer mediated communications. These are all computer mediated teams in the organizations. And how do they interact? Most of the time they interact virtually. And this is the reason why we need to focus on how to enhance creativity in computer mediated communication. Also, there is a rising need in enhancing the creativity of the teachers. Suddenly, because of these unprecedented events, what is happening now? The teachers, to a large extent, suddenly there is this big pressure on the teacher to become more technologically savvy. They have to be more creative when they have to teach their students. They cannot just be on that screen and go on giving the lecture. It has to be more of an audio-visual aid so that they understand the things. And also there are other things, how to build that communication, that relationship that you build with your students when you are face-to-face. So these are some of the things that are very much required for the teachers. Creativity plays a key role in these kind of initiatives. Instructional approaches that are learner-centered. Today, one of the key foci of any organizations or any educational institution is how to increase the productivity, how to increase the productivity of the students, how to increase the productivity of the teachers, how to increase the productivity of the employees in the organization. And especially talking about the educational system, our education has to be learner-centered. And when we talk about learner-centered education, it cannot be linear. A linear approach is one where the faculty is giving a lecture, the faculty gives, and the student perceives. No, it is more of a two-way process. As I always say, that every semester I teach a course, I learn something new. It's not only the faculty is teaching something, at the same time the faculty is also learning something, because time is changing, everything evolves over a period of time, nothing remains the same. So this evolution, we are all a part of this evolution, and we are all learning in the whole process. So definitely the whole teaching learning environment is never a linear process. It is always a very complex process where both the parties learn, both the parties teach each other, they also teach their peers, and it is definitely a very complex process. We have to make it very, very engaging. The learners, we have to actually encourage the learners to be able to study on their own. A lot of things are self-directed. They cannot rely totally on the faculty members to learn things. They cannot just rely on whatever lecture the teacher gave, the faculty gave. They cannot just rely on whatever assignment they did. It is more than that. They have to gain more information. Now information is available everywhere, and that is the digital era. And we get a lot of information somewhere, from Google, from Wikipedia, all these journals, scientific journals are available. You are talking about PsycInfo, EBSCOhost, and so many other databases from where you can get these articles in a minute. So these are some of the advantages, and we really want to tap those advantages, those resources. I often talk about open educational resources. This open education resource is a big resource which is open to everyone across the world. You just have to log in, and you have to log in and become a member. And what you get there, you get a lot of textbooks for free. There are many students who cannot afford to buy textbooks. So what do? They may not be able to, so for that reason, many students can't even pursue their degree. However, nowadays times are changing. We have a lot of information available online. There are e-textbooks, there are free textbooks, there are free quizzes, free exercises. Everything is available online. Open educational resources is something that in our department, in our university, we are allowed to use them. Well, there are some reservations in some universities where they, sometimes it is suggested that you do focus on the books that are kind of approved by the university, because those books are available in the university bookstore. University bookstore is a part of university. So if the students do not buy from the bookstore, the university doesn't make money. So that part is there. However, as I said, we have to be learner-centered. We cannot think about having forcing students to buy something, because if they are unable to buy something, we have to come up with something alternative. We cannot we cannot force, or we ourselves also cannot just adjust to the existing system and be a part of it. We need to bring that change. So that flexibility is very, very important. Focus on critical thinking. All the assignments that we give to our students, we need to really think, does it really promote some sort of critical thinking? It does not necessarily have to be something just from the text. Sometimes we have seen students come up with very unique idea. That idea may not be part of the textbook that we are offering, but it may be a part of that particular course that we are teaching, but that information is not in the textbook. I would say that let the student go ahead and go ahead with that particular idea. Sometimes what happens is students, especially when they are doing, I'm talking about the thesis students or students who want to develop their master's thesis or PhD dissertation, oftentimes they come up with an idea which is kind of aligned with the faculty research, which is very helpful, because then faculty, it becomes easier for the faculty to kind of support that student, give the necessary resources. At times, students also come up with very unique idea, and if we do not allow that particular student to explore that particular idea, what happens is the critical thinking, the creativity of that student has come to us, totally that point. So basically, what are we doing? We are kind of trying to make the student adjust to the existing system. However, I would say that especially when it comes to any kind of assignment, well, there will be many assignments which are aligned with your courses, and we should always keep a scope for assignments where students can go seek something where where it involves some sort of creative critical thinking. And there are a lot of assignments, a lot of ideas that we practice in our system, and we can talk about these later, maybe some other time. And then skill-based learning is very, very important in current scenario, as students are worried about, okay, I'm taking this course. Is it going to actually help me the moment I look for a job? Is it going to help me if I add this part in my resume? And that is a very valid question. If they're taking this course, that course has to specifically help them apply something in their real world situation. So that skill-based training is very, very requirement. And I am going to talk a little bit on the critical thinking part, the creativity part. What is creativity? Creativity is defined as a tendency to generate or recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, in communicating with others, or entertaining themselves or others. Creativity is very important in our everyday life, not only for education, not only for workplace. Creativity is required in our day-to-day decision. From morning to evening, we are making decisions. And when we are making these decisions, creativity, unknowingly, we are applying our creativity. And I can give you some of the examples. Let me just move on to, well, before I move on to the next aspect of it, I just want to say that creativity is a very broad area. If you ask a person what is creativity, well, oftentimes when I give a lecture on creativity to my students, when I ask them what is creativity, I get a lot of answers. Someone will say, oh, coming up with a nice painting is creativity. Coming up with a piece of poem is creativity. Writing a book is creativity. Coming up with an idea to solve a problem is creativity. Yes, they're all parts of creativity. It is really broad. But today I'm going to focus on something which is very specific, which is basically about how to generate more ideas and implement those ideas to find a solution to a problem. Anyway, so what do people think about creativity? The popular assumption about creativity is that creativity is creativity is inborn. It is a personality trait. It is a lone genius that it comes with you. Creativity cannot be changed. It cannot be enhanced, but that is not true. In reality, creativity can be trained. When you provide a supportive environment, when you provide a collaborative environment, we are not talking about lone genius here. We are talking about collective genius. Collective genius is a situation where a group of students get together, they brainstorm on ideas, they come up with better product compared to an individual sitting and thinking about ideas, coming up with ideas. Obviously, it is like common sense that two heads are better than one. Look at this. Everybody probably is familiar with this particular structure. It is a DNA structure that is available in our genes. And you see there are two structures in DNA. Do you think only one person actually created it? No. Watson and Crick together. Watson created one of that structures and Crick created other. If both of them were not together, we couldn't have it wouldn't have been possible today. So team creativity is very, very important in for organization, for educational setting. Walt Disney. If you look at Walt Disney's writings, his statements in public, he always says that whatever we accomplish belongs to our entire group, a tribute to our combined effort. The best ideas, most of the inventions that we come up with, even in research, when we come up with a new idea, the Nobel Prize that we always see that somebody got a Nobel Prize, in physics or say in mathematics, do you think it is just one person? Yes, the team lead, the name of the leader of that team comes up and the lead gets that prize. However, there is a team behind that person, and there's a lot of creativity, a lot of brainstorming that goes behind that whole effort. So that team creativity, collaborative creativity is very, very important in current world. The average individual can think up twice as many ideas when working with a group than when working alone. So that is why it is very important to provide those group creative tasks to our students. And the challenge is how to do it online. There are different ways to provide online exercises. And when I say group creativity, well, creativity is a social process. I'm sure everybody has heard about creativity and everybody thinks it's an individual aspect. It is just one individual. Well, in reality, no. It is the group creativity that makes a whole lot of difference in the real world setting, in real world application of problems. Creativity is enhanced when people work together on a project. It is a social process where there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of ideas that are being generated. People think outside the box, and there is a lot of perspective sharing. So that's why in our area, we call it collaborative creativity. And collaborative creativity has different aspects. Brainstorming is one of the very common aspects in creativity. And I think last week I asked my son, as I was preparing this particular presentation, I just asked my son, did your school or college ever teach brainstorming, how to brainstorm on ideas? And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't think there is anything like how to brainstorm. I said, yes, there are ways. There are techniques that you follow to brainstorm, and you can be very productive. Well, schools and colleges, they don't really focus on these kind of things, and these are very important. If you want to promote critical thinking, you have to tell them, you have to teach how to brainstorm on ideas, because this leads to very creative outcome. Brainstorming can be verbal, it can be electronic, it can be brain writing. And electronic brainstorming, I'll be talking about brainstorming a little more after a few minutes. And this electronic brainstorming is a common thing today because of computer mediated communication, and it is considered to be more effective compared to verbal brainstorming. Another one is decision making. Well, we are never taught how to make decision, and decision making is a very complex process. It is not just a heuristic. I will be talking about decision making in a minute, just to let you know that this is another area where which can be taught in a very interesting way. And perspective taking is also another important aspect of collaborative creativity. Divergent and convergent thinking. Well, when we are in group, when we want to come up with say new curriculum, do you think that just one person, one faculty member sitting down and coming up with a curriculum is going to lead to a better outcome? Or it is a team of faculty members sitting together, brainstorming on ideas, sharing perspective, bringing in variety of experiences and knowledge bases, that is going to lead to better outcome compared to just one person doing this. And if we somehow incorporate these kind of things in our educational environment, in our teaching and learning, this really helps the students prepare themselves for their vocations, for their future jobs. Critical thinking, very important in our it is a very important part of learning. However, none of these things are incorporated in our education system, maybe to some extent, but really not directly. And each of these aspects can be trained nowadays in USA. Many universities they come up with group assignments that actually focus on this kind of activities, divergent, convergent thinking, perspective taking, so that it helps them think deeper and come up with more ideas. And this is the electronic brainstorming that I really want to kind of focus on. Well, before I go to electronic brainstorming, I just want to give you a little background of face-to-face groups. Well, I'm sure we all have used face-to-face groups. So what happens when we have just a group which is face-to-face, generating ideas? Suppose there's a problem that we have to solve. We have to come up with a decision. And now we are leaving that group saying, the department head is saying that, okay, so you all get together and come up with solve this problem. Well, research shows that if you leave the group on their own, if you do not facilitate the groups, they're often less productive. What they do, there's a lot of chit chats, fun topics, then there will be phone, there will be irrelevant discussions, and people talk about things that they like. And then what happens? The focus on the real task is comparatively significantly less compared to the other things. Okay, so teams are less effective, especially in the face-to-face environment, unless we provide some sort of facilitation to the team. What happens when you have this face-to-face group? What happens? There is an uneven participation. One person will be talking and the others, there will be some people who are very extrovert in the team, so that person does all the talking. And maybe there is one person who's equally creative, but that person is very introvert. He's not going to go and say, well, hey guys, wait, let me say something. Maybe he doesn't want to say that. He's waiting for his turn, but his turn never comes because there is one person who is talking all the time. So if you look at the ideas, well, that idea is only from those people. Those ideas were only from those who were extrovert, who like to talk, who have very good communication skills. They are going to go and say everything. And the others who are quiet ones, maybe that person is very creative, but doesn't have very good communication skill. If we don't give a chance to that person, we never get that idea. So these are some of the things that happen in groups. And we have to do two things when we are in face-to-face groups. One is, I have to listen to that person who's talking. At the same time, I also have to think about my idea. Well, my turn is coming. I have to say something. So my attention is divided. On one hand, I'm listening to him. On the other hand, I am also thinking about my idea. And then there is a turn. Everybody gets a turn. By the time my turn comes, what happens? Sometimes I forget. Well, what was it? I was thinking of something. I lost my train of thought. That is very common in face-to-face groups. And well, the initial ideas becomes the focus. And what happens is, in a face-to-face groups, often we feel very comfortable in face-to-face groups. Okay, whereas when it comes to electronic groups, we call it electronic or digital groups because we interact electronically. In electronic groups, there is this, people think that this is kind of a disadvantage, that we do not feel that personal touch, that personal contact, but sometimes that is effective. You do not need to develop that relationships or personal kind of stronger cohesion when you have to come up with a decision. When you are focusing on a task, your focus needs to be on the task. It does not need to be on the person, or you don't have to agree with everyone in the group. However, what happens in the group, there is something called groupthink. We want to be cohesive. We want to talk about things that everybody likes to talk about. We don't want to come up with something which is different from everyone is talking, because we feel that if I share this idea, are they going to think that, well, look at her, she's not being a group person, the person is such a spoiled sport. We are talking about A, and look at that person, he's talking about W. Well, these are some of the tendencies. But I'll tell you what, when everybody is talking about A, another one person in the group is talking about say W or X or Y or Z, actually that is helpful in group. Maybe the rest of the members will think, well, that is not the topic, but yes, that is the topic. We have to incorporate different ideas when we are in group. And the problem is when we are in face-to-face group, that happens more, because we kind of start liking each other. We tend to share similar ideas. And then we do not spend much time on selecting the best ideas. What we do is oftentimes person A will say, hey, I think this is good, this is great. And then the person B, C, D, well, okay, let's go with this option A. Then when already like majority of the group members are saying yes, option A, then there will be a small minority who will not even agree. But then because everyone is saying option A is good, the minority is also going to, that little minority section will also say, okay, A is good. And what happens as a result, we do not come up with a very good solutions. And that becomes even more complex when there is hierarchy in the group. Suppose there is a group where there is a boss in the group, and then there is the subordinate in the group. Well, let me say educational setting. Say we have the faculty, there is a faculty in the group, and then there is this department head in the group, and then there is a PhD student also in that group, and say a couple of PhD students. Now they are brainstorming on certain topic, and that hierarchy sometimes comes on the way, because oftentimes what happens is, especially when it is kind of face to face, my boss is sitting right in front of me, how can I say no? Something, whatever comes from our authority, our dean says something, if the dean of the university says something, we have to agree this. So what happens is all these things actually affects our the outcome of the product. And what happens in virtual groups is that you do not have to do that. I'll tell you in a minute why in a virtual group you do not that those problems are minimized. But before going that, let me give you this common knowledge effect. This is something which we often see. Imagine these 3 bags. You can think of these 3 bags as 3 people, okay? And each of us is filled with a lot of information. We have our own personal experiences, our educational experiences. We get knowledge from different areas. So nobody is same. So we have different set of knowledge, a knowledge base. But what we do is when we get together, oftentimes we select only those ideas that are common to everyone, even though we know a lot of things, but we are going to choose the ones that everybody likes in the group. However, in reality, this should have been the thing. Everybody should have come up with something unique. That never happens. Well, we always come up with this, and this leads to an outcome which is still something which is common, nothing new. But what we need to do is come up with unique ideas. give this specific thought that, okay, person A already has said that, I don't want to even go to that topic. Let me come up with something which I know maybe those other people do not know. So these are some of the things that we can incorporate when we are talking about, interacting with our students, coming up with new ideas. Maybe it could be research ideas, it could be anything. Well, let's talk about this. This is another example. We all know this. We have already we heard it as when we were in preschool. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came trembling after. Well, let's think about it. Suppose Jack and Jill wanted to go up the hill, and there are two paths, path A and path B. Now they have to make a decision which path to go. And this is a group decisions they have to make. So they have to collect some information from both the path. Say Jack and Jill, they have come up with these ideas. Together they were talking about, well, path A is shorter, path B is rocky, path A has a nice view, path A is shady, path B has beautiful flowers on its way. Now Jack and Jill, they have this common set of informations. So in real life situation, what happens is when we brainstorm on a solution, we can tend to come up with just the common set of knowledge base that we have among both of us. However, if Jack now asks Jill that, Jill, do you know something else that is different from me? Maybe you know something more than me, and that is absolutely fine. People, we have uneven knowledge bases. Some people know more in some areas, some people know less. So at this point, if Jack asks Jill that, Jill, do you know anything else that I don't know? Jill says, oh, wait a minute. Yes, I know two more things. Path B has steps to prevent accidental falls, and path A is very steep. Now, suddenly their decision has changed. So these are some of the things. What happens is when we are face to face, most of the times we try to build that consensus in groups, and we do not go deeper into these problems. Okay, we go through a lot of cognitive biases, and actually in real life situation there are about 25 to 30 cognitive biases. I am not going to go into those details, but one thing I would like to say that these biases are minimized when we are in group. And how all these are minimized, I'm going to tell you when we are in group and when we are in virtual environments. I'll give you some example of these biases. One is availability heuristic. So what happens is, look at this COVID situation. Because of the current situation, what happens is sometimes we tend to make wrong decisions. Sometimes you will see some people are not wearing masks. They're not taking precautions. Why? Because they see, well, they have seen that people are kind of walking on the streets. People are on the beach. I got this little message from somewhere where they say, well, in Dharavi of Mumbai, there is a very small percentage of people who are suffering from, this whole COVID impact. So they are living in a bad environment. All these beggars, they're not suffering. Maybe there's some, it's not that serious. So that is availability. You just got some information. You don't look deeper into the problem, and you just make up your mind saying, well, I'm not going to wear my mask. Okay. So you just follow a shortcut. That is called heuristic. We follow shortcut because we hear some information, and those information have to confirm our beliefs. And that's it. We just follow that. There is another one. You all must, I'm sure everybody is aware about that pathetic, that very, that flight accident that took place few days ago. The flight which was on its way from Dubai to Kerala. So what happened? When you read this news, if you think that, oh my gosh, something like this happened and 12 people died or 50 people died in the air crash, I am not going to fly. So what happens? These are some of the heuristics that we follow. Biases, we try to, we already have our preconceived notions about some of the things, and we don't want to change. And when we collect information, we try to gather information that only confirm our biases. We do not gather information that can disconfirm our existing knowledge. And this is something, all these biases, don't think that it happens to only a small section of people. No, it happens to most of us. There is something called automaticity of behavior, and all these biases happen automatically, unbeknownst to us. It just finds expression in our behavior. Students, suppose a student fails an exam, the student is going to say, well, the teacher was bad, the teacher was difficult, the lecture was not good, the teacher did not give any good resource for us to study. Well, if the student does well, I am intelligent, I am the best in the class. The parents will say, well, yeah, my child, he never studies, but he does so well. He is like inborn talent, and which is very rare. And I must say that, hard work is the key for most of the achievements in our life. So there are so many biases that we are engaged in our day-to-day lives. And, when we get the messages, most of the time what happens is there are two ways that we kind of process those information. One is the heuristic processing and the other is systematic processing. And the common tendency is heuristic processing. What we do is, in our life, we are very busy. All of us, we have children, we have family, we have to work, we have to do other things. We do not have time to think deeper into most of the problems that we face. So what we do, we just look at what others have done, what my friend had done, what my colleague had done. I'm just going to do that. And what happens as a result? It leads to the common set of assignments we are giving to our students, the common set of courses, the same system that we are following. We are not really getting into the detail. Now, what happens when there is a virtual interaction? Groups are geographically dispersed. You can be in different parts of the state, different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And as we know, when the groups are diverse, they bring in diversity of knowledge base. As a result, what happens is, it enriches the teaching and learning environment. When you share those variety of ideas from different parts of the world, it is going to enrich our knowledge base, because just being in one small geographical area, we may be following a small common system for years, and we are not aware about what is happening in other parts of the world or other parts of the nation. But for virtual teams, virtual interactions, what happened now? Maybe COVID to some extent is a bliss in disguise, because it is forcing you to think out of the box. Today, I am talking to you all, and tomorrow we will organize another webinar. I'm going to invite you all. And what happens? There is more exchange of knowledge, exchange of information, and this has become more, that this has become possible because of this promotion of virtual interaction. And obviously it has a lot of positive impact in world is a global village now. The knowledge is no more something which is very, very localized. You cannot say that there is a lot of knowledge in Western countries compared to Eastern countries. You cannot say that anymore. You may not have too many journals. Maybe there are a lot of scientific discoveries and inventions that may be happening in different parts of the world, and it is uneven. But because of internet, because of these virtual interactions, now the distribution of knowledge base has become even across the world. And also there are now, what we have seen is, well, there are a lot of studies that have been done in terms of comparison of virtual versus face-to-face teams. Even I myself, my area is how to enhance the productivity of face-to-face as well as virtual teams. That's a part of my research area. From my experience, what I have found is that electronic groups They generate more and better ideas than face-to-face groups. They generate more original ideas than face-to-face groups. And one thing that really helps in electronic groups is anonymous. Oftentimes what we do in our department, when we have our department head and when we have our dean, as a faculty member, I may not be able to, we may not feel very comfortable sharing everything, giving our real opinion in some of the areas. But sometimes what we do, that is kind of a system that we follow. When we have a voting kind of a system, we go for anonymous voting. And it is very easy when we do it electronically. Nobody knows who is voting on what. So that way you feel more comfortable. You want to give your own opinion. You choose what you feel like, what is best. And so anonymity is something which can be very effectively used through virtual interactions. And another thing which is very helpful when you are talking about anonymity is you're no more focusing on how the person looks, how the person talks, whether the person is very rich, whether the person is poor, whether the person is black or the person is white, whether, what is he wearing? We don't care about that. We don't know who is who. We just see some random anonymous names and we just hear their voice maybe because we talk and we don't see each other. Our focus is to solve this problem, come up with this particular product. So definitely virtual teams are more effective. We minimize our biases. Our biases are minimized. The moment we don't see a person, a lot of biases minimized. The feeling, what happens is when we are in group, oftentimes we kind of develop a stronger connection with one person, a little weaker connection, maybe a little less stronger connection with another person. That is a normal human tendency. We kind of develop a feeling of liking with one person slightly more than the other one. So all these things, when all these dynamics happen in a face-to-face group, the productivity is affected because those fault lines in the group can come in the way when we are coming up with the final product, and those biases play a role. However, when the teams are virtual, well, they are just focusing on the task. We cross the boundaries of time and distance. People can join across the groups. Well, of course, in virtual teams, there are some negative aspects, which I definitely would like to share. Trust. Building trust, maybe it takes time. Sometimes if trust is required in a team face-to-face, sometimes it is helpful. Well, research has shown that if it is a virtual team, maybe you cannot build the trust in a short period of time, but when you interact with the team virtually for a little longer period of time, like Watson and Kumar in 2000, they published a paper where they say that when we interact in a virtual environment for a longer period of time, for about a month or so, then you start building that trust. But of course, sometimes it takes longer, say, for example, 17 weeks. This is a result of one specific study, but there are many other studies where they have found that, virtual teams, it is slightly difficult to build that trust right away. It takes a little time. And then another thing is, that is very, very practical, everywhere, not only in India, it could be anywhere in the world, internet connectivity, some technological issues. Some people may have bad connectivity. So how are they going to engage in virtual teams? And that is the need of the hour. That is very, very important that we have a good internet connectivity everywhere. That is the reason why I guess there had been a big push from the government of India to have a digital kind of India, where they were emphasizing a lot on providing internet options everywhere in every nook and corner of the country. I know it probably takes little time to implement this, but the whole idea, the approach is not really bad, because that is the basic requirement. If you want to come up with something which is more virtual, which is online, that is the first requirement that you need. Anonymity is very helpful. You do anonymous voting, you do anonymous peer review. Well, that is very common when we publish papers. For journals, I'm sure a lot of faculty members who are attending the talk today, and I'm sure they already know about it. There's nothing new. When we publish papers, our papers are reviewed by our peers. The peer could be from anywhere in the world. And most of the time, all this happens virtually. They get the paper, the editor sends them the paper, they review the paper. And when you are anonymous, research shows that when you are anonymous, you tend to give more detailed feedback. You do not feel hesitant to give a very open and kind of honest feedback to any kind of assignment. So obviously anonymity helps. So also that helps for students. I often use a lot of assignments where we use peer review for our students, where students I give, especially in my research methods class, I give them this assignment of coming up with a research idea, how to implement it. They have to come up with the whole idea. And then what I do is I do a peer review kind of an assignment where they exchange I do it. I assign one student's assignment to another student, and I remove the names from both. So they don't know whose paper they're reviewing, and they review each other's paper. I give them some guidelines what they follow. So I have noticed that these kind of anonymous things, they really help, especially in enhancing the knowledge. And when you give someone honest feedback, honest criticism, and the other person does not know who is giving it, so there is no bad blood developing anywhere. So the focus is more on how to enhance the knowledge. McLeod, 2011. Well, McLeod has done a lot of studies in anonymity, and especially in computer-mediated communication. And they have found that, there is a less production blocking. What is production blocking? When we are in group, face-to-face, if we get to see each other, even when we are like in Zoom, we get to see each other, there may be a production blocking because people are looking at me. They can see me when I am giving my opinion on a issue, on a topic that I tend to support. So I feel a little apprehensive. What will people think? How will they evaluate me if I say this? I don't want to be evaluated negatively. Nobody wants to be evaluated negatively in this world. So what we rather do, we would rather be quiet and say something which everybody supports. So as a result, what happens? Some of the key information does not come to light. So anonymity helps a lot in virtual environment, and that's we use it. We really need to tap these kind of things, and these are the kind of things were not really feasible when we were doing our face-to-face kind of interaction, teaching and learning. So what is the pressing need today when you are talking about students? Well, first of all, we need to train our students. Students need to be taught and scaffolded. I'm sure a lot of faculty members were here, and maybe a lot of students were here. They heard about scaffolding. This is, Vygotsky. He focused a lot about scaffolding, how to teach students through scaffolding. This is very common in school settings where we use scaffolding to teach students, and we can do that even in college environment to participate in critical thinking. And then promotion of collaborative activities, team building, effective negotiation. Some of the courses, there has been a tendency to focus on only STEM subjects. STEM means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are some of the core fundamental science subjects, and there has been a significant focus. We have seen even in Indian context that there is a lot of focus on those areas, and there is less focus in the areas of arts. You talk about community sciences, textile and engineering, food science and nutrition. You talk about psychology. You talk about social welfare. These are very, very important. You talk about leadership, curriculum and instruction. All these areas are equally important, but there has been a less emphasis how to enhance the knowledge, how to prepare these students for jobs. If you look at the organizations today, the theoretical knowledge that they have, just the knowledge in mathematics, does not prepare the students to become an expert in artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is something which is very common today in today's scenario. We are trying to apply artificial intelligence in everything because it is very much a part of information technology. However, if you do not prepare that person in terms of negotiation skill, in terms of decision making, in terms of interpersonal skills, these are parts of art subject. Science does not teach how to interact with a person, how to build, how to collaborate effectively, how to build effective groups, how to have better communication. These are some of the very important areas. And I am super impressed by the new policy where they have started focusing on a lot of subjects from fine arts, from social sciences. And these are very much important in management sciences, because the research that I do, it is in the juncture of, basically management, it is industry as well as organization and educational setting, where it bridges the gap between what is there in management and technology and what is there in arts. For example, teamwork. All these things are very, very important. The students need to learn this. And educators, what is the requirement for the educator? Make the best use of diversity in groups. As there is one important aspect. If you look at the current scenario in the student population is no more homogeneous. It is becoming more and more diverse because of the migration across the states, within the country, well, across nations in the world. Your student population is also becoming more and more diverse. There are students coming from different parts of the world, and it is going to be even more diverse when it is going to be a virtual environment. So it is very important for the educators to basically tap that diversity, because research shows that diversity brings in more and better ideas to any product that we want to come up with. So we need to be able to tap those diverse experiences, these students, or maybe these faculty members who are coming from different parts of the world. They may be speaking different languages, they may have a different lifestyle, but each of these experiences counts towards coming up with a very good product. And research has shown that diversity always leads to very original, unique ideas. It helps us in divergent thinking. Then we can bring in diverse ideas, and also this whole thing of perspective taking, where we try to proactively bring in perspectives from different people in the group. That really helps a lot in coming up with better outcomes. So teachers, the faculty members need to come up with curriculum that focuses on critical thinking. And critical thinking is a very broad area. It includes all of these: perspective taking, divergent and convergent thinking. An important aspect of critical thinking is doing things in group. Collaborative creativity, that is very much required in today's environment. Talking about future of online learning, well, we all can foresee this. Lectures will be recorded. What we do is in our university, we record our lectures and then we post it. There is a place called the Canvas. It is like a portal where we post our lectures there, and the students can log in and they can see the lectures at any time. Okay, and then there are online group discussion forums. There are virtual office hours for faculty, and it is same. Like we always have to have like about 10 hours to 15 office hours in our university. Before prior to COVID, we had to be at our office during those 10 to 15 hours, where students, if they have any question, they could come in and they could ask questions. But now things have not changed at all. It's just that I am virtual. Still, we maintain that 10 hour office hours in a week. So we tell our students that these are my office hours. Please come ask me. Please log into Zoom on these during these office hours. If you have any question, you can come and meet me. I will provide you whatever support you need. So virtual office hour is something which has become very common. And also there are some other things like, you know, you don't need a face-to-face group to teach some of the things. For example, you talk about some of the major theories, they're there everywhere. Maybe you can come up with a better package, you know, virtually with a lot of audiovisual aids. Say Pythagoras theorem you want to teach to your student. You know, maybe you'll do a better job when you prepare that lecture yourself, including your lecture along with something, you know, something audio visual, make that package and post it for the students. They'll learn it better than teaching it in the class and then teaching something which comes to your mind at that time. Because when you sit, when you think, then you get a better chance to apply better examples, better illustrations, bring everything together, make the package, post it. That way you learn better. So these are some of the things which are very important. And then, of course, which paradigm is better? Do we really go online or do we really go face-to-face classroom? That is a very common question across the world today. What do we do? Well, research shows that findings are mixed. Well, one group of researchers, there is a lot of studies in this area, but I'm just picking up a couple of studies. Some researchers found that, you know, taking online course, it reduces that in-person touch. So sometimes it may negatively affect the student's success and progress, especially when you are talking about science courses where you need a lab. For example, some, you know, a physics, some course in physics where you really need to get into the laboratory, where you need to conduct your experiments. So how will you do it when you are in virtual environment? So obviously, to some extent, that may be a negative aspect. So there are ways how you can deal with that. You can come up with hybrid. You know, a hybrid option is something that university is focusing. And in our university, we call it high flex. That is hybrid plus flexibility. And high flex is kind of teaching learning mode where we follow a hybrid method. We teach online, and then also if a laboratory is required for that particular course, we set up one particular day on one particular day for a face-to-face meeting. But then we also maintain, we are planning it for coming fall, because we all are on the same boat in that high flex environment. What we have done is we have to maintain a certain number of students in the lab. We cannot have the whole lab of 50 students if the lab is small. So we maintain a certain, we look at the space in the lab, and then we maintain certain number of students. So if this week 10 students are coming, the following week the other 10 students are coming, attending the lab. Of course, we'll follow everything, all the protocols of mask and gloves and everything, social distancing. But yes, that is possible. We can still conduct hybrid method, and research shows that hybrid is better. Traditional format versus hybrid interactive online studies, there are a lot of studies where they compared hybrid as well as traditional, and even I conducted some studies where we compared, just face-to-face, just online, and a combination of both. And what I have found that combination led to better performance, better productivity, and also to a large extent it is cost saving, because universities, when it is face to face, they need rooms, they need classrooms, they need furniture, and universities are expanding, which calls for more buildings, more infrastructure. But if we kind of have a combined approach, which is hybrid, then maybe we can save cost in that area. So now COVID has also impacted our research. Well, research is something which has become a big challenge, basically for the researchers. There are research methodology where we have to have face-to-face contact. Think about data collection where we have to give questionnaires, where we have to go to places where we have to collect data, through interviews. How do we do it? So that definitely has become a challenge. However, if somehow we can have better internet connectivity, we can do those interviews virtually. They are going to be face to face. The difference is going to be that we are not going and meeting them in person, but we can always send our Zoom link. They can join via Zoom or WebEx or Google Meet, and then we can interview them face to face, of course, virtually. So now the focus is more on online data collection, and this leads to enhance focus on creativity among the researchers. They are now trying to find ways to be more creative in terms of their research methodology, how to enhance their research agenda by incorporating these kind of virtual methods to continue with their research agenda. Definitely this is a big challenge, but we have to move on. We always know that world is changing, so we all have to change, and change. We cannot avoid change. So definitely there are options for online data collection. There is more and more focus on archival data nowadays. Virtual group studies. I myself have my students who are working on their thesis, they have started coming up with new thesis proposals where they're incorporating virtual groups. Initially, they used to do a lot of face-to-face ones, but now they have come up with new research methods. We are brainstorming every day to come up with new ideas, how we can come up with research methodology that are virtual in nature, because on-site lab experiments are becoming difficult for us. So we have converted, we come up with virtual labs. And in fact, here in US, there are specific disciplines, which is called human-computer interaction department. It's a whole big department, like Department of Psychology, Department of Social Science. There is a department called human-computer interaction, where they teach students about human-computer interaction, different ways how to, deal with, to come up with different, ideas, how to make decisions, how to work in teams. There is a lot. It's a whole big discipline by its own. So some questions to ponder. So now that we are here at this point, we definitely do not have answers to everything. Even I myself, we all are on the same boat. We are all working diligently, coming up with new ideas to solve this current, pressing, problem of how to make our teaching more effective. So there are some of the questions. For example, do students really need a 4-year college residential experience? So if we are going online, does that mean that we no more will have hostels, those residences where students used to stay in hostel? That's a great experience for the students. They learn by staying in those residential dorms or hostels where they interact. That is another form of learning process. That's another part of their growth and development. They are socializing with other students. That is a learning curve for them. So if we convert everything virtually, do students really need to have that college residential experience? And if they don't have, then what happens? What next? Well, we have to see what next. I don't know at this moment, because we are all on the same boat. Time will tell us. Then another question is, what improvements are required in IT infrastructure to make it more suitable for online education? It's a big challenge in terms of IT infrastructure. Some students can afford to have a high-speed computer in their house, high-speed broadband, internet. Some students, they cannot afford to do that. They have, so our society is not even. We do have people from different walks of life. How do we, so that is a big challenge for in terms of infrastructure. And so that is another problem. So how do we solve that problem? What training efforts are required for faculty and students to facilitate changes in the mindsets and behavior? Now, also, we have to, at the same time, we have to change how we make our presentation, because now I don't see any people in front of me. I just see that slide. Well, I have to train myself as if I'm talking to someone, as if there is a person in front of me. And also there are, we have to be very, there's one thing that, we have been hearing a lot is maybe we were not a very technology savvy to begin with. Now, because of this change, we have to be positive about it. If we are very negative, saying that, oh, I cannot do it, technology is not my thing, well, you guys do it, I cannot do it. So if we have that kind of a mindset, then the change will be difficult. Now we have to bring that change in our mind. We have to be very positive, and we have to learn, and we have to learn, no matter at which part of our life, at which stage of our life we are. This learning is in obviously we all are a part of this whole learning curve, and we have to be a part of it. And then how field-based research will be conducted. So these are some of the questions that we need to ponder. So I wind my presentation. And if you all have any question, you can ask me questions, or if you have any question, if you want to see how I conduct my online teaching, I'll be glad to do that. But I leave it to the audience, whatever question you have, and I will answer your questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at the moment. Thank you.
Dr. Rajashri Fukonn. Dr. Rajashri Fukonn. Hello. Hello, Dr. Rajashri Fukonn. Ma'am.
Yes.
There are so many questions in the chat box.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
From them.
Maybe. Okay.
One question is, Madam, which one should be priority? Homogeneity of infrastructure or implementation of ideas?
I would say that both go hand in hand, because you definitely need to come up with new ideas. Okay. And the whole change in this environment is forcing us to come up with new ideas. We have to implement new ideas. We have to change with the changing environment. If we stick to the existing system with the homogeneous set of ideas that we have had in all these years or decades, that is not going to bring a positive change. So change is inevitable, something which is a must for all of us. For that, implementation of new idea is the priority, I would say. Of course, based on available infrastructure. If you do not have, a lot of resources to bring in a lot of new ideas, but whatever infrastructure is available at the moment, based on that, definitely there should be a little bit of, inclination to implement new ideas.
Another question is here, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective. For rural India, many of the students are going platform as part of formal teaching for the first time. Kindly suggest some tips to encourage them to participate and enjoy proactively.
Sorry, what are they using, you said?
For India, many of the students are going to...
Yes, I can hear you. They're going to use what?
A question for rural India, many of the students are going to use virtual platform as part of formal teaching for the first time. Kindly suggest some tips to encourage them to participate and enjoy proactively.
Well, virtual platform, yes. Obviously, we all have to get into this virtual platform. So to encourage the students, I would say, first of all, be very positive about this change, because this change, we all are in a learning curve. Your faculty members are also getting used to this new system. The student, as a student, you are also getting used to the new system. We have to be a little more patient when we are implementing something new, be a little more positive. In the long run, I think this is going to be very, very rewarding, because virtual platform brings in a lot of variety of resources. Maybe it will take slightly little time for the faculty members, but over a period of time, I would say it is going to bring in a lot of positive changes. So be motivated, bring in that positive attitude in your mind that yes, this is something new, I need to learn it, my teacher is also learning, it is going to bring a positive change. So that kind of motivation at this moment is very, very important.
Another question is there. Ma'am, don't you think in Indian situation, there are some technical and technological challenges for online teaching?
Yes, I do agree with that. It is not only for Indian situation, it is everywhere in the world. There are technological challenges for teaching. However, the challenges are not only technological. Think about face-to-face teaching. Suppose there is a Bandh. Suddenly you have, out of 365 days, let us talk about Indian context, okay? There are so many holidays you have. Over and above that,
Okay.
suddenly there is this Bandh, that is that Bandh, and those bring in challenges to your learning, right? But if you are in virtual environment, in a virtual platform, then maybe you can still continue the learning. The universities don't have to close in, for the, some of the things which they're not supposed to close, right? So I think that is a big plus point, that when the platform is virtual, the learning continues. It is not affected by a lot of environmental, kind of restrictions that we have. Yes, the technological part is important, but as we say, we can fix the technological issue. The technological issue is something that can happen today, but it can be fixed, and it can be that problem can be removed for tomorrow. We are looking at something which is long term. We are not looking at something what is going to happen to me today, right? If we can have a better, say, internet connection, or if not today, maybe over a period of time, in the long run, virtual platform is going to be very, very helpful.
Another question is the same type of question. It is related with rural areas of Assam. What is your opinion on proper utilization of online and distance learning in rural areas, especially in Assam?
In terms of proper utilization of resources, I would say that the first and the foremost requirement is obviously you need to have a good internet connection. That is one requirement. And once you have that connectivity, you are exposed to a whole big world of databases. You have a plethora of information on the internet. Even if in rural areas, suppose you cannot afford to buy a textbook, still you can get a textbook online in that area, maybe written by another author. As I say, there are open book resources, so there are a lot of positive aspects. So yes, one of the requirements which somehow have to be met, which is the priority, which is your internet connection. Once you have that, other things, they will automatically fall in place. Of course, there's one more thing: your motivation. When you are self-learning something, the motivation plays an important role. We have to be motivated. We have to motivate ourselves. We have set up times like, okay, I have to log in I have to study, I have to finish this course if we want to, if I want to succeed. So that nobody will be there to tell you that, do this. So that motivation has to come from yourself, because this is a self-paced learning. So these are some of the things which is, again, this is very, very psychological, and this plays a very important role in this whole new system.
Another question is there. What is the best virtual classroom software?
Well, virtual classroom software in the US, I can tell you, we use Canvas. We used to use Blackboard. These are some of the very common virtual software platforms that we have been using, and they are very, very useful, where there is everything. You can post your lectures, videos, even if it is a statistics course. I teach behavioral statistics. I solve problems by hand. I video record it. I post that on my Canvas. And so it becomes very helpful for the students to actually go back and see it. But in Indian context, I'm not sure what kind of virtual classroom platforms they follow. In fact, to know a little more about it, I contacted one of my friends. He is a faculty member in IIT Delhi. And I asked them, like, what kind of virtual platform that are you using as a faculty? Where do you post your assignments? Well, he says, we often use Google Classroom. So I think most of you are using Google Classroom. That is also effective. But I would say that I'm sure there are companies in India that are coming up with a better portal where it is like a one-stop shop. There will be everything. You can update your textbook there. You can even take attendance of the students. There is a lot of flexibility in that particular portal. So I'm sure you will come up with something really great over a period of time. And India does not take long to come up with a new technology. So I am very hopeful about it. But Google Classroom, for the time being, it helps, because I also talked to a faculty member from Jorhat, Dr. Juri Barua, and I asked her, what kind of classroom do you use? And she says, well, we use Google Classroom a lot. And I'm sure a lot of you must be using that to begin with.
And so, no more such questions.
Okay, sir.
But
Abhijit sir,
so many, yes.
am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Oh, okay. I'm apologize because for a few minutes I have lost the connectivity. Anyway, thank you very much, ma'am. I hope and believe that all the participants got satisfied with the interacting session. Thank you once again. Now we are coming to the end of the session. So let me honored and privileged to thank you all. At the outset, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to our principal sir, Professor Budhin Mishra, the pillar of our esteemed institution, for his constant encouragement, support, and motivation. Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the resource for her excellent deliberation on the topic teaching and learning in virtual environment and its subsequent impact on higher education, which is highly encouraging as well as relevant in this present scenario. I'm sure and believe that all the participants will be highly benefited from your lecture, ma'am. Once again, thank you very much, ma'am. I keep on record indebtedness to all the participants, dignitaries, faculty members, research scholars, students, and alumni from across the country who have joined us today and help us to make the program possible. Thank you all. But not the very least, I am thankful to the technical support of LISPA. Without their support, it would not have been possible for us to organize this webinar. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to LISPA once again. With this, thank you all for your kind presence. Thank you.
Rita Baidu.
Hello.
Hello, Rita Baidu. Rajashri Pukon has some network issue. So please conclude the session, ma'am.
I'm listening.
Okay. Am I audible? Obviously. Can you hear me? Are you there?
I am
Sir?
unable to hear. Well, I think you are breaking, but I think Dr. Borkotoki, I could hear you a little vaguely. I can't hear Dr. Fukon at all.
Okay. So now we have come to the end of this program, and as Rajashri has already offered the thanks to all the participants and resource person, the principal, I also will take the opportunity to thank you once again for joining us. And I hope all the participants have benefited from this program. Definitely, from my side, I can say it was a wonderful presentation of Professor Rani Borua. I would like to be connected to you in future also if possible. And so with this, I'd like to say conclude the program with thanks to everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity. Special thanks to the organizer. Special thanks to Dr. Mishra, Dr. Borkotoki, Dr. Fukon, Mr. Borpujari, and all the other organizers for having me today. It was wonderful talking to you all. If you have any question, I have my email. Dr. Fukon can forward my email to you all. You can send me questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously,
Shall
can
I?
you have a photograph
Yeah.
together? Obviously, can we have a
Yeah.
photograph together if everyone comes?
All webinar has been recorded. Recording will be available. Recording will be available in YouTube. We will provide YouTube link.
Okay, okay, thank you. So we can
Thank you
conclude.
very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Now I'm going to conclude the meeting and cut off the connection.